Congratulations to the class of 2025. You've done many hard things to get to this place, as has been underlined by every story that has been told. You deserve to celebrate. You deserve what happens here today, a baccalaureate service, which is somewhat similar to a commencement, but with a decidedly spiritual focus. These are interesting affairs, what happens here. Captured by some. For example, the funny man Rob Orban says, these events, these graduation events, are dominated by sometimes hundreds of graduates dressed identically, listening to a speaker telling them their success in life is their uniqueness. It's true, isn't it? Or George Bush, who told the students at Yale, the graduates at Yale, he said, "Congratulations to all of you who have earned awards, distinctions, and privileges. And to the C students, you too can be president." Or even the Doonesbury comic, Gary Trudeau, who said that graduation addresses are built on the premise that it's not safe to send graduates out into the world until they have once again been sedated. Well, I hope that's not the case here this morning. But I can tell you this. I want to focus on the scripture reading that was just read, the passage from Proverbs. Because at moments like this, learning and growth and understanding and information and intelligence and even IQ are in the air. You have worked hard to get where you are. Just consider the fact that as of tomorrow, all the work, all the all-nighters, all the expense, all the effort and energy that you've put into it will be summarized with 2 or 3 or 4 letters. MA, MS, MSW, PsyD, PhD. Those 3 or 4 letters that follow your name will summarize an incredible amount of work and energy. And yet it's not that interests me today. What interests me today is not the material you've mastered, not the lessons you've learned, not the competencies you've conquered. What interests me here today is something that the writer of the Proverbs calls wisdom. Understanding, intelligence, IQ, whatever else you want to call it, does not necessarily equal wisdom. What exactly is wisdom in the Old Testament Proverbs? You might picture it as a young child pulling on her grandma's arm. "Tell me a story of when you were my age." She nestles up against Grandma and listen to Grandma's carefully crafted tale with a clear moral lesson. Age-appropriate wisdom. What is wisdom? It's the old man with rheumy eyes, with lines that crinkle around his eyes when he smiles. He's lived. He's learned. He's wise. But those have to do with age. Now, while the Old Testament book of Proverbs does nod to age, that's not the reality of what wisdom consists of. In that book, wisdom consists of having the insight and the courage to make sound decisions that align you with the will of God. Just that. Sound decisions that align you with the will of God. The passage that Dr. Ranslin read as a scripture reading is a passage that includes a concept that was not called this in that world, but we often call it by this name in this world, and that's a keystone decision. Keystone decisions are those decisions we make which immediately set into operation a whole list of consequences to come, sometimes for years, sometimes for decades, sometimes for the rest of our lives. You made a keystone decision when you chose the path of education and when you chose your particular profession. That will continue to affect you the rest of your life. Marriage is a keystone decision. Depending on whom you marry. Think about this. Many realities will grow from it. In fact, I found a keystone decision in an email a friend sent me some time ago. Here's what it said. She spent the first day packing her belongings in boxes, crates, and suitcases. On the second day, she had the movers come and collect her things. On the third day, she sat down for the last time at their beautiful dining room table by candlelight, put on some soft background music, and feasted on a pound of shrimp, a jar of caviar, and a bottle of spring water. When she had finished, she went into each and every room of the house and deposited a few half-eaten shrimp shells dipped in caviar into the hollow of the curtain rods. She then cleaned the kitchen and left. When her husband returned with his new girlfriend, all was bliss for the first few days. Then slowly the house began to smell. They tried everything, cleaning, mopping, airing the place out. Vents were checked for dead rodents. Carpets were steam cleaned. Air fresheners were hung everywhere. Exterminators were brought in to set off gas canisters, during which they had to move out for a few days. In the end, even paid to replace the expensive wool carpeting. Nothing worked. People stopped coming over to visit. Repairmen refused to work in the house. The maid quit. Finally, they could take the stench no longer and decided to move. A month later, even though they'd cut their price in half, they couldn't find a buyer for their stinky house. Word got out, and eventually even the local realtors refused to return their calls. Finally, they had to borrow a huge sum of money from the bank to purchase a new house. And then the ex-wife called, asked how things were going. He told her the saga of the rotting house. She listened politely and said that she missed her old home terribly and would be willing to reduce her divorce settlement in exchange for getting the house back. Knowing his ex-wife had no idea how bad the smell was, he said, if you would just sign the papers today, I'll give it to you for 1/10 of the price. She agreed, and within the hour, his lawyers delivered the paperwork. A week later, the man and his girlfriend stood smiling as they watched the moving company pack everything to take to their new home. And just despite the ex-wife, they even took the curtain rods. Keystone decisions. They just keep paying off and paying off and paying off. That's what the wise man says to his reader. Now, you have to understand the context. In this particular place in the book of Proverbs, it's a father speaking to his son. You get the picture that the son is about to launch into the world, and this is the father's last moment. I remember with our son, Austin, I remember sitting out in our patio. He was leaving for college. I remember feeling the urgency of trying to take 18 years and somehow give a word of wisdom. And I realized something in that moment. I realized this moment is urgent, but it has to be slow. We can't rush through this. Urgent, but slow. That's the proverb. Back to Proverbs 4, verse 10. Hear, my child. Some versions, hear, my son. Hear, my child, accept my words, that the years of your life may be many. I have taught you the way of wisdom. I have led you in the paths of uprightness. When you walk, your step will not be hampered. If you run, you will not stumble. Keep hold of instruction. That's another word for wisdom here. Keep hold of instruction. Do not let go. Guard her, for she is your life. That's the keystone decision. Keep hold of wisdom. Make the decision now, he's saying, dear son, make the decision now that your life to come, at all the crossroads you encounter, at all the decisions you confront, at all the choices you face, say, I will walk in the way of wisdom, making decisions that align with the will of God in my life. Now, I would add to it, That the wording in the original about keeping hold of it, about guarding it with your life, the wording implies this will not be easy. This will be very difficult. So we might summarize what he says about this keystone decision by saying, do the hard thing. Do the hard thing. Have you ever noticed how often the hard thing is the right thing? Telling the truth when it would be so much easier to lie. Choosing to be generous when it would be so much less expensive to hoard. Choosing to manifest integrity when it would be so much more convenient to be duplicitous. We like that. We want to choose the easy thing. I was thinking, how is that illustrated? And I came across this. It's curious. It's interesting that somebody wrote a little piece about the Bridger area wilderness in Wyoming. I haven't been there. I looked at the pictures. Spectacular. The broken country of the Tetons, the beauty of the blue sky, the green, the forest, the wildlife, moose and caribou and bear. It's just a spectacular place. Just the kind of place which you look at and say, I want to be there. I want to get away from all this, at least for a while, and enjoy the splendor of God's creation. That's the place. Here are a few of the statements from the comment cards. They give people the opportunity to comment. This is how you would improve it. Trails need to be wider so people can walk while holding hands. Trails need to be reconstructed. Please avoiding building trails that go uphill. Isn't that cute? Too many bugs and leeches and spiders and spider webs. Please spray the wilderness to rid the area of these pests. The coyotes made too much noise last night and kept me awake. Please eradicate these annoying animals. Are you serious? A small deer came into my camp and stole my jar of pickles. Is there any way I can get reimbursed? Please call, and then the phone number. A McDonald's would be nice at the trailhead. There are too many rocks in these mountains. Are you kidding me? We want it nice, we want it comfortable, we want it easy, including too many times in the way we live our lives, the way we spend our energy, and the way we spend our money. And along comes the wise man and says, do the hard thing. Make that keystone decision to say, throughout my life, my interest will be to allow all that I've learned to express itself in wise living. It's a hard way to live. It's never going to be easy. You will face choices right out of the starting gate. Maybe none more important or none more simple than who am I living for? Am I living for me? Am I living for others? A couple of stories. Jessica Rocha was a child of immigrant parents. She knew, Silvana, what it was to be out in those fields. Her father was intent to teach her lessons. And so she worked right along with her parents, worked right along with them in the back-breaking work of planting and plucking and picking the fruit. She knew what it was to have that experience. She went to school. When she would return, her father said, I want you to keep working with me. I don't want you to forget where you came from. When she graduated several years ago from University in San Diego, University of California in San Diego, she went out to the field where she had worked. You'll see her picture up on the screen. Went out to the field where she had worked to take a picture. She wanted to recognize and memorialize this moment in the midst of what she had done and how she had succeeded. I want you to listen to what she said at that moment in time. She said, nobody thinks about nor sees what happens behind a vegetable you grab at the grocery store, but behind it is someone who breaks their backs every day working in the fields. You'll have that choice. Am I going to live out there or am I going to live in here? Or what about Osceola McCarty? Osceola McCarty, decades ago, was a woman who did wash for wealthy people in order to make a living. 50 cents a load. 50 cents. And she said, I prefer the washboard to these electric washing machines. 50 cents a load doing the wash. And she saved her money. As the years passed, as she continued to work so hard and save her money, life just continued. Funny thing about doing that, the money tends to mount up in the bank. When she came later in life, near to her retirement, she went out and sat down with her banker and asked him, how much do I have in my account? He said, you better be ready to hold on because you have in your account $250,000. 50 cents a load. But Osceola wasn't about living for herself. She donated $150,000 to the University of Southern Mississippi to help young African American people go to school so that they could afford it. She did the hard thing. She lived outwardly. She said, I will do something to others. In fact, what she said precisely was to quote the words of Jesus, it is more blessed to give than to receive. And she said, believe me, I know. I wanted to show it to you, but with copyright and other issues, I couldn't. But you can find the YouTube video of when Osceola was celebrated. Maybe the key moment was when she's sitting down in this great crowd listening to the music of the incomparable Patti LaBelle. And Patti LaBelle is singing, if I can help somebody as I walk along, if I can cheer somebody with a word or a song, if I can tell somebody just where they've gone wrong, then my living will not be in vain. That was Osceola. She made the keystone decision to say, it's not all about me. I will pour into others. Now the Osceola McCarty Youth Development Center continues to do that every single day as it pours into young people who continue to benefit from her spirit. And in the background of that is a wise man sitting with his son saying, do the hard thing, make the decision that you will live life outwardly, wisely, pouring into, investing in others. The truth is, there's probably nothing easier in the world than to live for yourself. Nothing easier. Be the most natural thing. Sit on the couch with the remote, pay your bills, get a nice car. Nothing easier. But that will be a keystone decision that will slowly turn you in on yourself. But if you make that keystone decision, I will do the hard thing, I will choose the way of wisdom, I will align my life with the way God calls me to, which is always outward toward others. If you make that decision, it will transform your life and your destiny. So do the hard thing. And may God bless you and countless others through you.